All right, my game is uh, Dead Island 2. I played this a couple months ago, and whenever it first came out with some friends of mine, and it's pretty dumb. It's a game where you play like it's like a multiplayer. It's almost like I guess you could say kind of like Left 4 Dead in concept, except it's much more story driven and much more traditional quest driven. It's a first person shooter, I guess. Although, why would you use a gun when a baseball bat seems to be much more effective? It's very it's like stat based, and you have skill trees, but it's more of like a card system where you can apply it to yourself. It's kind of like everything that they take like a modern game and they put a twist on it, and it sucks. It's like we could have skill trees, but we've evolved into cards. Like, no, skill trees are much better. And it's like we could have we like you could shoot the zombies because that'd be fun. It's like, no, we want you to only hit people with baseball bats. Because you get guns, but the ammo is so restrictive on these guns, and it doesn't even do more like there's just like a lot of logical problems with it because like you have a baseball bat and the baseball bat is level 20 and you have a shotgun and the shotgun is level 15. It really shouldn't. Your play style should kind of dictate that you'd want to use the shotgun. Like, who cares what the level is? But no, the baseball bat is like 100 times more effective, and you'll look like an idiot if you go out with that shotgun. Even though, like in any real scenario, the shotgun would be infinitely more useful, like for clearing out zombies. But no, it's entirely like RPG stat based, and it's not very fun. It's very rigid with that. So there's like a lot, and but the really like okay, so if you look at like graphically, it's pretty damn good. Graphically, it looks great. The gameplay runs pretty smoothly. There's a couple issues. A lot of these kinds of games that suffers from hit detection. It's like when you're hitting a zombie, it doesn't always feel like they're like, oh. Sometimes it reminds you of like Elder Scrolls, like old Elder Scrolls games where you're like stab
Oh
something with a
no.
sword and it'll just kind of keep moving, and they don't really bother to do anything with that. But I mean, it's not the worst. There's good examples and bad examples. But fundamentally, the game has some serious flaws to it. For the biggest flaw I found is that there's literally, except for one small example, when you're playing on multiplayer, there's literally zero penalty for dying. It's like you die and then you get revived and you just keep going. So, like in Left 4 Dead, part of the tension of the game, part of what makes that series so fun is when you die, you're out, and your friends can help you. But that's literally part of the zombie dilemma: is do you help your friend who's in trouble, or do you try to move on and complete the mission? Because if you help your friend, you could end up in trouble yourself. So it's part of that like back and forth. Will we, won't we? Like situation of being like terrified and trying to, you know, solve the mission. Now, this game erases all of that tension. There's absolutely none. And if you die, you literally just respawn with full health and all of your items. There was no monetary loss. In the original Dead Island, you at least lost a lot of money. So later on in the game, that became a problem. In this, there's none. There's zero issue. So I would just like literally rocket myself into combat and start swinging away at people and trying to murder everything. And then I would die. And then I would just be like, don't worry, guys, I'll be back in 20 seconds. And so I would just come right back and just keep going. There's literally zero tension in the game, except for the last boss, which became an act of, because here's the one problem. If all of you are dead at the same time, it is game over. And then you go back to your last save point. So the last boss was literally the only difficult part. And it isn't even that difficult. You just have to hit the weak spot, which we found eventually. But it became a game of if two of us are dead, the other person will just run in circles around the boss for the next 10 seconds until somebody's back up. And then we're like, back up. We go, okay. And then we just keep acting like idiots when we fight it. The game is so broken in that aspect. It's I can't even recommend it. It's terrible. If they really tightened it and made it a challenge and gave stakes and gave tension, this would actually be a pretty good game. They need to up the ability to use weapons and give you more incentives to use different weapons like shotguns, pistols, sniper rifles. And then, incentivize using melee weapons, but don't literally make it completely pointless to even bother using guns because melee weapons have infinite ammo, obviously, because it's just a melee weapon. So there's tons of balancing they'd have to do. But as it stands, it's a pretty stupid game. It's not even really fun. It's I equate it to like playing Metal Slug on a whatever they like the new releases that they do where you have infinite coins. So there's literally no point in playing. There's zero tension in the game. So kind of a disaster of modern game design, but pretty to look at. I'll say that. I like the architecture too. That's nice.
Please don't call it stupid and then equate it to Metal Slug. Thank you.
Metal Slug's fucking terrible.
Oh.
Can I share a little bit of background for this game? Because I actually have some interesting facts that I learned the other day. This game went through some development hell and passed through 3 different developers.
Yeah.
So the first developer was the team that made the original Dead Island, and they came to Deep Silver as the publisher, and they were like, "Hey, here's what we want to do with the next one. It's a parkour game." And they go, "Nah." And so that team left, went to WB, and made Dying Light, which is a much more successful game than the first Dead Island ever was. And then they brought on a second team to make Dead Island 2 during like the beginning of the PS4, Xbox One era, and they were using Unreal 4, I believe. And they wanted to make it an MMO style game, and apparently they went through like development hell with that, up to a point to where Deep Silver just scrapped it. They were like millions of dollars in, and they just scrapped it and got rid of that team. So this team basically had to come in and pick up the scraps of the previous team who failed to make that MMO game and sort of stitch something together. So that might have something to do with the quality of the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you can see some of those bones. It has like a World of Warcrafty style feel to it, where and so did the old one, quite frankly. But this one more so, where it's like this is an epic weapon and it's got higher stats for this reason. Actually, we played the first Dead Island right before we did this one, just to get us all on the same page. And it was a much better game. Like the game actually isn't terrible. It's not perfect, but it's a little bit more like you feel better with the character progression in it. And the environment's also kind of cool. One problem with Dead Island 2 that's also persistent, and is in other games too, is that it has a hard time balancing between being really silly, like a lot of other zombie games try to be, and then being really serious, like, the other half of the zombie games try to be. And it never quite finds the right balance between those two. And it'll just bounce back and forth, be like, we got to save this mom who's like, her kid is potentially dying. And it's like, we run by and it's like, to get there, we have to help a DJ that's on the top of a building who's wanting you to drop kick zombies into a fire pit. Like, it's like the tone is so ridiculous and garbage that if you're trying to tell like an emotional story, you completely fail. And if you're trying to tell a silly story, you're completely failing. It's all just a complete tonal mess.
And is it set on an island or is it in LA? It looks like it's like Beverly Hills or
I believe
something
it's LA,
on
right?
it.
Yeah, it's LA.
Okay. So it's not an island.
It's not an island.
No, the first one was. This one is not. This one is.
You had one job.
It has a
The island, North America.
Yeah. Yeah. The first Dead Island had the craziest trailer. I remember that.
Yeah,
and it was like this
backwards.
Yeah, like a backwards trailer. It was so emotional and amazing.
So cool.
And didn't represent the game at all. It was like completely at odds with what the game was, which was like a complete like hack and slash. And everyone was kind of looking at like, oh, is this kind of like almost like a Last of Us style vision? And no, it was nothing like that.
But I mean, that is sort of what Techland would go to do with the Dying Light games, because those are a little more serious.
From what I've seen, yeah, I've never played one.
Yeah. And like that's the thing, is that they were like, we want to make a serious like hardcore zombie game, and Deep Silver was like, no. And they were like, well, bye. And then they went to WB and made it.
That's funny.
Well, in spite of all the shit, behind it, like the shit talking about it, it seems like it's reviewing pretty well. Why do you think people are more or less positive to it?
Their brains are lazy.
Zombified, zombie brain.
Zombie brain for sure. It's not good.
You got to be a real zombie to like this game.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It looks nice. It plays nice like it did. There weren't a lot of bugs. There were a couple, but nothing major.
Did the whole thing co-op with a friend or friends?
With 2 friends, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Number 3.
And Alex. Oh wait.
No, not you guys. Other things that maybe people like. The cast is very diverse.
I didn't see that. Reviews.
Yeah, I don't know. It runs fine. It's just there's so many things at the crux of it that are so broken that I cannot. This represents like really bad game design. So.
Is the mechanics, like the fighting mechanics, kind of satisfying at all? I know my boss at work was playing through it for a couple days, like a week, and he was hyping it up, saying like it has like the precision like attacks, kind of like Resident Evil 4, where you could take their legs out or shoot them in the head. They react a certain way. Is that satisfying at all, or the combat?
It does have like a weird body part system where if you hit certain body parts, and you can hit most body parts, they'll react in a certain way. Never really felt like it offered me any tactical advantage, which was really annoying. I'm sure there are instances where it does, but we ran through the whole game and never bothered to care about that. We just hit them on the head as hard as we could every time, and it generally worked. So, I mean, some of the bosses have, yellow body parts on them that glow. So it's like I should probably hit that. But in general, it was neat that it was there, but it offered nothing from a gameplay perspective. It was just kind of, oh, that's kind of neat. And then you move on and say, I wish it did something more.
All right. Well, thanks for recommending a zombie game to stay away from.
Yeah. Avoid it like
And that's
the zombie play.
That's Zombie Month Game
Don't
Talk,
do this
everybody.
to me.
Thanks
Oh
for
my
joining.
Hey y'all, don't forget to subscribe to them button mappers.